Welcome to Tamer Bowling Video Ball Reviews. For exclusive content, please join us at patreon.com/tamerbowling. I'm excited to announce our new partnership with Pureit Bowling. Visit our partner pureitbowling.com and use the special code TAMER when making a purchase to be entered into a monthly drawing. Today we are testing the new Hammer Web Tour Edition. We're testing on a 40-foot medium house shot and a 40-foot PBA Don Johnson pattern. First impressions, the concept of a Tour Edition ball is done very well with the Web Tour. This looks like a sport benchmark success story waiting to happen. For value, we gave the Hammer Web Tour Edition a B. It's reasonably priced and will compete with other, quote, Tour Edition balls on the market. Overall, we gave it a B on house shot, B+ on sport. This is an interesting piece from Hammer. This formula of low RG, low diff in a solid has been done by other brands. However, this one actually uses a different formula in terms of cover stock to get it to work. And this told me what it is from 3 balls thrown. One was more direct, where it shot that felt like it read the lane at my feet. One shot where it had too much room and it kind of read and stopped, leaving a bucket. And the third shot, and every shot after that, were flush. This ball uses aggressive surface to give you really good control the first 30 feet of the lane. It also has a lower RG, which means it wants to get itself into a roll quickly. The lower differential gives a controlled and predictable back-end motion. The short version, this ball felt like control of the aggressive Black Widow urethane the first 30 feet, but then instead of that soft urethane back-end, it actually hooks like a reactive, but in a controlled way. James Kasee is next. He is a Hammer staffer. The ball is very clear in terms of what it is out of his hand. The aggressive cover means it needs some room, unless you really overpower it with speed or less rotation. And the core is not huge down lane, so you see the limits in both directions, but you have a nice little zone in the middle to play with. And James really doesn't need this much surface, especially on a house shot, so the Web Tour can lose some energy with his higher rev rate. But it worked well enough that the Web Tour Edition would come into its own, ultimately more on sport pattern where the back ends are hotter. Finally, Bryan is up, and if you predicted what he would see, it probably would be correct. The ball's surface means it needs some oil again, and typical house patterns don't have a ton of oil until you start really getting into the flood. But Bryan doesn't create tons of side-to-side motion, so if he pushed it to the outside friction, it did make it back to the pocket, just not enough energy to carry consistently. And what he needed to do was actually just parallel everything and move in, but also pull the break point in, and there the ball did its business. So 15 to 12 looked great, 12 to 6 not so much. The positive is that this ball finds the pocket really easily. For the sport shot, we're on the 40-foot PBA Don Johnson pattern, a little higher volume. The Hammer Web Tour Edition has a nice shape for a sport shot. Back ends are already aggressive on the sport shot, so it gives it the extra oomph, while the aggressive surface gives the ball control up front. The ball doesn't lack back end on this pattern at all. And for James being a higher rev, the ball doesn't stop. I think a touch more volume would be a better matchup for him, or less built-in lane friction like you might see on tour. For Bryan, it also wasn't so difficult to find the pocket, and even though he's a little in, the ball isn't depleted of its energy going through the pin, so same line as the house shot 15 to 12. Final thoughts. Ultimately, I think the Hammer Web Tour is a nice addition to the lineup. It's sometimes hard to say if these type of balls will wind up great benchmarks or more niche pieces. Tour editions are now using lower diffs to get control on tough patterns, and while that's great for tough shots, house shots are typically far from tough, and many bowlers can use the help of something with a stronger core down lane. Nevertheless, the average rev rate continues to increase with two-handers and so on, and that this may be just rightly placed on the market and timely.
I need to tell you what Tamer Bowling Ball Reviews